This episode of Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong on the All on Georgia Radio Network is brought to you by our friends at the Curated Cup. You can visit them at www.curatedcup.com. Right now they're offering a promo special where when you purchase 2 bags, you get your second bag half off as well as free shipping. This is fantastic coffee, and if you pick some up today, you can let them know just how much the All on Georgia podcast, Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, means to you. So go over there today to our friends at Curated Cup and pick yourself up some outstanding coffee and help a local Georgia business. That's www.curatedcup.com and use promo code ALLONGEORGIA, one word, at checkout. You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Hold on.
Good Lord.
I'm ready. I'm ready. When do you want us to start recording?
We are recording. And what a week it's been, y'all. I mean, what a week. As we recorded this show last week, honestly, we didn't even know whether it would ever see the light of day. We didn't know whether the powers that be at All on Georgia would even allow it to be on the air. Or on the internet, as it were. But they did, and the response was absolutely incredible, thanks to you guys. So, we just cannot thank our listeners enough for what they've done this week, and it's just absolutely incredible. I am Jonathan Giles, all on Georgia Douglas. I covered Douglas County, as well as a little bit into Carroll. Joining me is Jessica Szilagyi, who's always here with us. Jessica covers pretty much everything from Macon down to Savannah. I'm kidding, but she covers a lot of counties. Bullock, Tattnall, Screvens, Wayne, City of Oak Park. They love her down there in the City of Oak Park. Also, we have Matt Lowe here. Matt's also here with us as well. Matt is a contributor for All on Georgia Paulding. So, Jessica, while we're on the subject of Oak Park, before we move on, I hear you had a lot of fun down there this week. So, tell us a little bit about what's been going on in Oak Park.
In Oak Park, I managed to get a who sent you and a who the hell are you in 48-hour period, which Oak Park's in Emmanuel County down here on I-16. So that's been a fun kickoff to my week.
What about you, Matt? How are you doing this week?
Man, I've had a whole bunch of nothing. I've had a few sick kids.
A whole bunch of nothing, huh? This is a podcast, right? I can't say much because I'm pretty sick myself, but, you got to do a little bit better than that. If we're just going to do that, then we might as well just go with Jessica's idea of reading off a list of names of who's wrong and saying the word Constitution and calling it a day.
Taxation is theft.
Okay, we'll add a taxation is theft too. So tonight we're going to be talking about distracted driving. That's talking on a cell phone, and it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Our guest this evening is going to be John Pezold from House District 133. He is down in Columbus in that area, and Representative Pezold, even before the session started, had made some public comments about the distracted driving law, so we're very happy to have him here. So, Representative Pezold, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. There's no people I'd rather be with than you guys.
Well, we certainly do appreciate you being here. When we started this podcast, we didn't expect a lot of legislators to want to come on because, well, they're all scared of us, but here you are, so thank you for that.
Right. I've just got good taste, I guess. Jessica and I go back years, so she's been putting up with me for quite a while now.
So, Representative Pezold, one of the most interesting quotes that I've seen regarding this legislation was a quote from you that your understanding is that under the new distracted driving law that's currently moving through the House, that a driver could start a Netflix movie in their driveway before they left and drive down the road watching a Netflix movie, and that would not be in violation of this law because they're not touching the phone. That can't be correct.
That is my understanding. I've not been told otherwise. It's also my understanding that you could just spread out a physical copy of the AJC on your dashboard and just have at it. And look, you're not manipulating a device. So, hey, look.
I did look through the most current version of it today, and they've changed the manipulation of the device to a single touch or swipe of the finger on a wireless communications device to initiate or terminate wireless communication. One single touch.
So, but it would still be lawful to watch a Netflix movie. So long as you start it safely whilst in your driveway. And then you can safely watch Breaking Bad as you roll down the highway. So,
what if we could pay $20 and watch porn?
Hey, the government we deserve, right?
Right.
For a small $20 fee, yes, you can.
So we can swipe left under this new law.
That's correct. I'm not sure if we'll let you swipe left because it's partisan. because we're Republicans and we're for limited government. But anyway.
So Representative Pezold, I know that a lot of your involvement here was initially driven by the actions of Columbus PD, which is, down in your area, of course, and they were apparently ticketing. They did a sting operation of some kind. I'm not real sure of all the details of it. It's been quite a while since I've read anything about it. Can you kind of give us a rundown of what was going on there?
Right. So what they were doing is they were ticketing people while stopped at a stoplight for doing things like eating a chicken finger or taking a sip of coffee or applying lip balm while stopped at a stoplight. And, it screams policing for profit. Now, I'm not telling you that I know that they're policing for profit, but it just doesn't look good when, when a city is talking about, budget concerns and all of a sudden they're doing these stings for distracted driving with people and the wheels aren't even moving. So that was troubling.
Now, let me ask you a question about that, because Columbus is one of the few places that has done stuff at the local level. But if this were to be put into place, would you prefer it would be by local ordinance, like on a case by city basis or county by county, or would you rather see it done at the state level if you had to choose?
I mean, you're asking me, do I want to see my individual liberties and privacy cut at the state level or the local level?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Is there a door number 3 there?
Nope. This is Georgia.
Look, anything that I don't agree with, I would certainly rather it be pushed down to the local level, because then I have, more options of, do I want to go across the county line? Look, I live a quarter of a mile from the Alabama line. So that would certainly be preferable to a blanket state law, but it's stupid nevertheless. Can we say that? We can say that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, the argument that has been made is, well, the current texting while driving law is unenforceable, and if we do this, then it'll somehow be enforceable. And, I brought this up during one of our meetings. I said, technically, you may be right. It may be, quote unquote, enforceable, but will it be enforced? I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple years ago, we passed legislation saying that if you're in the left lane, you got to be passing somebody. And if you're not, then that's an offense and you can be pulled over for it. And if any of you guys have spent time on a major freeway or major artery, you've been behind somebody who ain't getting over and they're in the left lane, and there's law enforcement around and they're just not enforcing the law. So my point with this distracted driving is, it may be enforceable, but who's going to enforce it if we can't enforce the most obvious offenses out there? It's just not happening. And, distracted driving with the multiple swipes or whatever the current language is. Yeah, that's all well and good when you're stopped at a stoplight and there's a police officer right next to you. But let's be honest, this is going to be going on when you're at 80 miles an hour down the freeway, and they're just not going. And that's when it's most dangerous. And they're just not going to. They're not going to be able to enforce that. So
right. That's last week. I actually met Representative Micah Gravely and sat down with him one night and talked specifically about this bill. And that was one of the things that I was pointing out to him was, I took my phone and put it in my hand and I dropped it down below the level of the table so he couldn't see it, and then asked him to tell me what I was doing. Like, I drive a truck. It would be the same scenario for a cop trying to look at my vehicle to figure out, how many times I just swiped my phone.
Yeah. It's a terrible bill.
It's one of the things that I came away from that discussion with was that it seems like at least the folks that have been in the committee, they're having an internal debate with it because logically they understand this is a crap bill, but emotionally.
But Matt, it's an election year,
right?
I mean, we've got to get reelected here, right?
Some of us.
Yeah, I mean, and look, here's the cardinal rule in the General Assembly. If you say something is for the children or for the veterans or for the children of veterans, then your bill is pretty much golden. Is that right, Jessica?
That is correct.
Right. But otherwise, I mean,
no weed for the kids.
In most cases, check your brain at the door and vote yes for kids.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the bill makes sense. It doesn't matter if it's feasible. This is all about coming back.
So are you seeing in Columbus, are these tickets holding up in court?
Oh, yeah, they are.
All of them? Because, I mean, we were talking about that before. It's pretty much, it just leads to my word against a law enforcement officer's word. And there's no evidence. And, of course, their word holds more weight in court. So, I mean, there's no defense for it. Like, you're cited for it, and then that's the end of it.
Right. And, and people don't understand that this is a complete bastardization of the law on the books. All they know is they're being accused of something by law enforcement. They're standing in front of a judge and they're scared. So
right.
Who's got the leverage in that situation? Of course, it's not the citizen. So they pay their $200 and some odd fine and, go about their business for something that is just for taking a sip of water, for God's sake.
Well, you have people who I was just going to say, you have people chiming in to say, you start the conversation about texting and driving or even just distracted driving, and immediately one person chimes in and says, well, it's more dangerous than drunk driving. And the conversation or any real discussion is over because that's a heartstring and it's indefensible when you compare it like that instead of looking at it through the lens of all the other things you've talked about already.
Well, and anybody looking at this objectively knows that there is a huge difference between putting on lip balm while stopped at a stoplight and drinking and driving, or typing an email out as you go down the road. There's a difference. And all I'm saying is let's make the distinction here. But that would take, actually having a normal discussion using your brain, and that's uncalled for.
Before we get off, I know you're only supposed to talk about this, but I want you to go over your bill that just passed.
Okay. So the bill that we got passed yesterday was House Bill 79. And so if you've ever driven past a law enforcement vehicle, hopefully you haven't been just flying past a law enforcement vehicle, but they've got what looks like a bevy of cameras on the trunk and on the hood of the vehicle. And it's not cameras necessarily, but they're license plate readers. And so instead of a law enforcement officer being on the side of the road and writing down plate by plate and kind of cross-checking them against the system, what this does, it automatically scans the plate and cross-checks it. And so if a vehicle drives past that has outstanding warrants associated with it, there's a siren that goes off in the vehicle. So the problem is, under current state law, there's absolutely zero limit to how long law enforcement can keep this data. And so what this bill does is it sets a limit at 30 months that if you're not under investigation for any crime, they've got to purge that data automatically. And it also makes the data not subject to open records requests anymore. So when we drafted the bill the first time, it was 30 days. Passed the House 2 years ago at 12 months. And ran out of time in the Senate back in 2016, and now we're back. They negotiated it up to 30 months, which obviously I would rather have 30 days or 0 days or 24 hours. But, relentless incrementalism. So now we move on to the Senate and see what we can get done over there and hope for the best.
You have any other bills, Pezold?
I was thinking about drafting a, distracted driving legislation that would say that you're not guilty of distracted driving if you're stopped at a stoplight.
Mm-hmm.
But, I just feel like it would probably be lumped in with, at best, lumped in with this really crappy distracted driving bill. So, why waste anybody's time on it? I do have something that I've got to go pick up from Legislative Council tomorrow regarding the Amazon legislation. I think you may like this. It basically says that any money appropriated using that slush fund in whatever code section it is must also be offered to any existing Georgia business.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Going back to the distracted driving one really quick, after the committee report came out, before session started, I talked to Heath Clark and Representative Shaw Blackman, and both of them said that they weren't exactly sold on the idea. They were on the distracted driving committee, so they went to all the study committees they were talking about maybe dropping an alternative, but as of right now, I haven't seen an alternative, only additional, amendments and changes in committee. So hopefully they can change it.
It can't get much worse than what it is right now.
So is there any version of that bill that any of you guys would find acceptable?
Jeez. Look, it all comes down to enforcement. How are you going to do that? I don't understand how. I get it. People are going down the street and, flying down the road and not paying attention. But, look, if somebody is guilty of gross negligence behind the wheel of a motor vehicle and cause property crime or, affect somebody's life, liberty, or property, throw the book at them.
Right.
But if you're sitting at a stoplight, you are literally affecting zero, like nothing. So.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't know that that it's a deterrent. That this is a deterrent. I think a deterrent would be, look, if we find out that you were texting, driving, or Facebooking, or whatever it is while behind the wheel, and you strike a car, or God forbid, kill somebody, we're going to charge you with vehicular manslaughter and gross negligence, and you're going to jail.
Right. I have this thing where, it annoys me when, they pass laws like this in the name of safety and then attach money to it.
Right.
Right. So at that point in my mind, especially like this one, I think, it's about money, So, somebody asked me the other day, that same question, what version of that bill would I support? And I said that to remove the fine from it, that upon conviction, you lost your license for 1 year, but you couldn't get a conviction on the unsupported testimony of the officer alone. Something like that.
Look, here's a novel idea. You can get this done without legislation at all. The insurance companies right now could create an app that can run on the background of your phone. And if you sign up for it, it disables all communication with your phone, with the exception of GPS. And if you use this, you're locked into it, and you'll get 15% off of your insurance bill.
Right.
They can do that right now. But isn't it easier to just have the government strong arm people into it?
Well, that's how they get their money.
Yeah.
Like, I really have this pet theory that they've managed to demonize DUI and make those fines so draconian that, it's $9,980 cheaper to take an Uber. So people are doing it. And part of me thinks that the state's feeling that crunch. And that's what this kind of nonsense is about.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. The problem is when you depend on Vice as a revenue stream, you're going to be looking for new vices every once in a while. So,
rural broadband.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, I know that's one of Jessica's pet issues. Although I don't think she likes this. So,
yeah.
No.
Jessica, what's your take on it? Because we haven't talked in a while.
The perspective that I see it from is that if the federal government can't do it with triple the money, then how is Georgia going to do it? And to tax these entities and tax the customers, I mean, I just don't understand. You're as much as I want faster internet and better services where I live, I'm not comfortable with taking from others to fund it, to run wires out to my house and everything. If I want faster internet, I can pay to run the wires myself. Just haven't done it. But, this whole thing of let's tax a huge percentage of the state so that a little bit more can have more, it's just not right.
The city of LaGrange had an issue a decade ago or so, and they could not get high-speed internet. So they went to AT&T or whoever the provider was that they went to, and pitched it to them, and basically the provider said, look, it's you guys aren't worth our time, not enough consumer base there. Right. So the city took it upon themselves to lay fiber, and it is just it has just worked out magnificently for the city of LaGrange. And look, am I crazy about a government entity being a supplier of this? Well, not necessarily, but their hands were tied, and they knew that this was the future. So fortunately, they were forward thinking enough to invest in fiber, and so they've got the infrastructure in place now because of that. And it seems like they're able to provide at relatively low rates, and so local governments can do it. But
in addition to that too, especially where I live, these local communities are given franchise fees to allow Georgia Power and certain organizations lines in place or put them in the right of ways or whatever the case may be. And the local governments have sold rights. So I can't have the company that is prominent and has fast internet and everything. They stop across the street because they sold the rights to my property to another company. And so the local governments, like you're saying, have the ability to, enable residents, but they've also sold the rights out on these decades-long contracts so that they can profit from it.
Well, yeah, and the question is, where are those franchise fees going? Are they just going to the general fund and they're pissing it away? And of course,
to them.
Yeah, right. So, look, it sucks if you're in rural Georgia and you need broadband, but hey, ask your local governments what they're doing with the revenue streams that they've got, and if if they're answering something other than investing in infrastructure, well, that's a them problem, and elections have consequences.
Right.
Right. I've often wondered as well the same thing of, how much of this broadband problem is really a rural obstruction problem, because I know that a big part of the problem in general with broadband is the fact that it is monopolized. It's a monopolized service, and you're told that, that if you want cable, you have this choice. And basically with most people, they have a couple of internet choices. They can either go with the local phone company, which usually provides internet, or the local cable company. So, I mean, when that's all you have, then in that type of, in that type of market where you don't have these free market choices and you don't have real competition, then, I mean, this is what you're going to get.
Sure, but look, at the end of the day, if I am in local government and I have the option to, on one hand, I can invest in infrastructure myself, and use those funds for that, dedicate them for infrastructure. That's option one. Or option two is I can arm some people in Atlanta to have metro people subsidize me. Guess what I'm going to do 100 times out of 100? I want to be subsidized by Atlanta. And that's what they're doing. And I mean, look, it's a winning proposition. I got to hand it to him.
I think it's Brian Kemp who has this in his campaign platform, and this is not an endorsement. I repeat, this is not an endorsement. But, one of his suggestions for rural broadband is he wants to encourage companies, local EMCs and organizations that are already in places like where I live out in the country, and use some of the things that they already have wired and like take advantage of what's already in place instead of having them start from square one, because it is so expensive. And I don't really know the legal intricacies of all of that, but making this a reality, if these candidates actually want it, or even these elected officials want it to be something that can happen, they've got to get creative instead of just saying, we're going to place a small tax on a couple services and that'll be the end of it.
Right. No, I agree.
And we're basically at this point, the actual legislation, we're basically discussing, a tax on Netflix. Do I have that correct? And something else, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure what else besides Netflix, but
I thought it was DirecTV too.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah, I know that Dish Network has. I've seen several people send some images to me. I don't have Dish Network, but I've seen several people send images of where Dish Network is actually running campaigns on their TV with legislators' names on it that have sponsored the bill, telling you to contact these legislators and tell them that you don't want your Dish Network bill to go up.
Well, I cut my DirecTV bill. I cut DirecTV about 9 months ago, and I've never looked back. So
I did the same thing. We killed DirecTV in our house about a year and a half ago. Running everything off internet. It's great.
DirecTV, if you would like to advertise on the All on Georgia podcast, let me tell you why you're wrong. Then go ahead and send an email to Jessica at allongeorgia.com.
I will put in a plug, though. I switched to DirecTV Now. That's the web-based service.
Right.
And I just watch TV through my Apple TV, and it's fantastic. And I save $100 a month. So I think I locked in at $39 a month, and they said if I prepaid for 3 months that I could get a free brand new Apple TV to run it off of. So yes, please.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
I
don't have these issues. Google has taken over Douglasville. We have a big data center here, so that was part of the deal when when Google moved in was they got all the county tax abatements, and in return they had to basically put the fire wire in the ground out here. So it's quite nice in the Douglas County with the Google.
All good with the Googles.
All good with the Google.
The 56-cent tax.
Wait, say that one more time.
It is a 56-cent tax on a premium Netflix subscription that is $14.99
Per month.
per month.
For somebody in Metro Atlanta to pay for Brooklet.
Correct. You're welcome, Jessica.
Woo!
Sounds legit. Let's do it.
Right?
We're going to add those quarters up. It's going to put that fiber optic in the ground over there at Jessica's house.
Of course, then we're going to get the stupid arguments of what? It's just 56. Pay 56.
56 cents.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll get rounded up to 60 by the time it's all said and done.
Let's just round it up to $6 and call it even.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Paulette's porn money could go to. I mean, porn bill money.
There you go. You get a subpoena. You get a subpoena. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you having me on. This has been something I will never forget as long as I live. And,
Hey, we appreciate you coming.
hey, this has been fun. I'm always willing to and eager to talk about the goings on in government, and even when I'm unelected, which cannot come soon enough, I'll be glad to come on with you guys anytime.
All right. Well, hey, we do appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Always great to hear from Representative Pezold. So, Jessica, we talked earlier about Oak Park and your big adventure in Oak Park. So, can you give us a little bit more detail about, exactly what's going on down there?
So Oak Park is in Emmanuel County. If you've traveled to Savannah, you've gone through it. There's a few square miles on I-16, and it started much like all of my local investigations start. I was contacted by a group of citizens who are upset about some things happening that have happened at their city council meetings with not being able to voice their opinions to their local government. Some of their council people have even been told they're not allowed to speak without permission of the mayor, just some financial problems and things like that. So they called me, and I went over and met with them and got a little information. And then on Monday morning, I filed an open records request. I think I filed it around 10:30 or 10:40 in the morning, and just asked for financial audits, bank statements, the basics, things that are already in place for any government that is operating efficiently. And within an hour, I had a phone call from the clerk saying, did someone contact you, or is there a reason you're asking us for all of this stuff? The traditional, who sent you? Why are you here? What are you looking for? And so she kind of played ping pong about why she was asking. She didn't really care, but she would try to get me the documents. And ever since then, it's just been a back and forth of emails, kind of explaining excuses why she doesn't have it. She said she's been there for a couple years, but she says she can't find the documents or they're not readily available. They're several years behind on their audits. And so I've been going to counseling. I went to a counseling on Monday night, went to court there this evening. A feeling that it's going to be some combination of Claxton and Cobbtown and just a whole bunch of forthcoming stories on allongeorgia.com.
Well, outstanding. How did I watched some of the city council meeting down there. How did that go as far as you talked to anybody? Anybody talked to you, or were you just basically just ignored, or how did that go?
So Oak Park is a unique situation. It only has a couple hundred people in their town, and there were about 40 or 50 people at the meeting, but this is a unique city because right now there's probably at least 50% of the people who are angry about what's going on in the government. So they were happy to see me there, and they were happy that someone was going to be covering the story, where usually I've got to find the story and then convince people what's going on. I don't have this advantage of having the public support behind me. So it was actually without the clerk and the elected officials, it was otherwise a very friendly environment. And then the other thing is that you put a camera in a room and it's like having the principal in the room for observation. You know, they're polite, they're calm, they're collected, they're orderly. So I didn't get to see any of the shenanigans that have been going on, but I've got some citizens with the videos of when they were fighting boisterously. So looking forward to getting those.
Well, that's outstanding. And how did the court situation go?
It was disappointing. It was a room full of people. They recently had to double their court dates because they hand out so many tickets. And so they had to increase the number of days that they hold court in their town. But it was, I looked at the license plates as I was coming in because they have interstate. You know, most of the tags were from out of town, Fulton, Gwinnett, places from outside of South Georgia. So it was disappointing, but I don't want to get too much into that because it's a story of itself and I don't want to spoil it.
What the hell are you wearing?
Me?
Yeah, what is all this?
It's a cowl neck. A cowl neck.
A cowl
it keeps
neck?
me warm. Cowl. Look.
What? It's 80 degrees. How?
I have a thyroid problem. I'm cold.
She doesn't carry the body mass that we do, Matt.
Man, even when I was skinny, I was always hot.
I've never been skinny. I don't know.
Man, I was 145 pounds the day I graduated high school.
Yeah, I was 245.
How long ago was that?
Back in 1962.
1996.
Oh, I was 8.
I was 11. Yeah. I remember going to the Atlanta games in 1996. I went with my father. It was quite a lot of fun.
I was down there.
Did you go by horse and buggy?
What?
Did you go by horse and buggy? No, we live in the big city.
What's a
We
horse?
have cars. That's how they get around down there in Brookwood. Especially. I want to say it's a little south of it. No, it's y'all don't have Amish, but there's a Mennonite community down there not far from you, isn't there?
I don't know.
Because there's a bunch of I see them on some of the hunting pages that I'm on. They guide pig hunts out there. Like,
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
they're all Yoder. Like every one of them. There's 400 of them. They're all the last name's Yoder.
Yoder?
But
I
anyway,
don't spend a lot of time hunting for pigs, though, so I don't know.
what up?
Why not?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to.
You should eat pigs.
Are we going to get into this already?
We can get into food. Pig isn't peasant food like chicken. Now that really should be.
And there go half of our listeners.
Right. That conversation should be its own podcast. But no, man. 96.
Purdue
the
Chicken's
Olympics.
not going to be a sponsor.
Tyson. Z-Bird. Oh, no, I was down there the day the bomb went off. Like I had just left.
Oh, we're back to the Olympics. Well, that was fast.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the Olympics.
Yeah, I was bringing it back around, you know.
Okay.
Oh, wow. That is a... You know, sorry, I got distracted there by that photo. Actually, I was down there too. I was probably half an hour behind that bomb when it went off. We'd been down there. My dad was working at the time for a food service company, so he had worked out this fantastic little deal. He had gotten a pass that allowed him to go anywhere in the Olympic villages to check on refrigerated trailers and check their temperatures and make sure that they were at the temperature that they were supposed to be at. So, I mean, we could go anywhere. We were all over Centennial Park. We were, all over the Olympic Village, the whole nine. And yeah, we had left Centennial Park probably half an hour before that bomb went off.
Right.
And I mean, it was scary looking back on it, because it's, Centennial Park's like a big place, and it's not like, we were just at Centennial Park. The trailer that we were actually out there, because we actually did have to check off the trailers while we were out there screwing around. The trailer actually was destroyed by the bomb.
Wow.
Because it
it was right there. I remember it was near the Swatch.
Yeah, it was right underneath that tower that fell.
Jessica's Googling Swatch right now. What the hell is that? Man, I love the way that we can have all these random conversations and you get them all stitched together and it's like this one cohesive podcast.
It's because I'm good at what I do. I'm very good at what I do. HB 744. I'm fixing to go off on my own rant here.
So, Representative Powell, let us tell you why you're wrong.
So this is what we're dealing with. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated related to property so as to allow for vehicle immobilization devices or boots to be applied to trespassing vehicles on certain property. So what we're dealing with here is the codification of boot laws, because as of right now, I could be wrong. I've done some research, but I'm not 100% thorough, because you know how confusing the law can get at times. But I don't believe that at this point in time there's actually anything codified in Georgia law regarding these boots, and this would actually make boots legal. One of the things that I'm most troubled by is that it's basically state that you are responsible for any damage done to that boot as property rights go. And I know that, all three of us are very strong on property rights, and as property rights go, I mean, basically what you're talking about someone else attaching their property to your property is what you're talking about here. And to actually codify it in law that you cannot damage or destroy that property or you will be responsible for it is just, I find it to be a violation of property rights.
Have you heard anything as to why this bill has come about?
Actually Matt and I were talking, and Matt has seen some advertisements from this company that's pushed to, that's been pushing toward this law. So, I'd love to hear from him more about what exactly
some of the ads from the company that is I guess lobbying for part of this legislation. And I think the worst part of it was the ads. Some of the ads were talking about booting vehicles of homeowners who had yet to pay their HOA dues.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I was like, holy crap, I'd shoot somebody thinking they were, trying to steal my car or something. But I guess that's part of the reason that they're pushing for this bill, is so that it is legal for them to get onto people's property and do this kind of crap.
And I think that the thing about it, so I think that anybody that's ever, spent any time in Atlanta probably has a horror story about a boot, about the boot people. These are not people that are out looking for like serious parking concerns. I mean, these are, you talk to anybody that's been around, Phillips Arena or, around, there's certain Krogers in Atlanta that, I mean, these people literally hang out and watch for people crossing the street and will run up and boot their car. I know that my daughter and her mom were at a thing at a Disney on Ice event at Phillips Arena, and they were literally 8 minutes late getting back to their vehicle, and the vehicle was booted already.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's what we're really dealing with here. And these people love to make it seem like, oh, it'll just be anarchy if we didn't exist to put these boots on all these vehicles. But that's simply not that's not what they're doing. I mean, these are, and then not only that, but the guy absolutely lied and tried to extort an extra $100 out of me when I showed up, because she only had a debit card, and of course, because of the kind of business that guy's in, I told her in no uncertain terms, do not give that guy a debit card. I'll be up there with cash. And when I showed up, he attempted to extort an extra $100 out of me by claiming that she had tampered with the boot. And by this time, somebody else that was out there had already contacted Atlanta PD, and Atlanta PD was out there on scene, basically just keeping the peace. So, I was very irate with this guy, and the Atlanta police officer asked him to please attempt to get that boot off again, because I was standing over him as he made the statement that the boot had been tampered with, and he pretended to stick the key in the boot, but he did not actually stick the key in the boot. He just stated that it had been tampered with and that it was going to be an extra $100 to get this done. So what we ended up with was then when then of course Atlanta PD comes over, he puts the key in the boot, and the boot is working just fine with no issues. So.
Well, I think it gets into a huge conversation. I mean, this could go off in so many directions. And like you said, more metro people have a lot more experience with these types of things. Like, we don't really deal with a whole lot of booting problems. But, like, I know some of the organizations and companies that have contracts with these companies. And like you said, they wait for you. And I remember I was out with some friends one evening, and I left my car after the restaurant had closed, and I was back before they reopened the next morning, and they had booted my car, and I had to wait hours upon hours for them to come get it. But it's a racket, and for the legislature to be accommodating to this, I mean, I'm not surprised, but of course I'm still disappointed.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I agree that it is a racket. And the other thing is something that I discovered after this booting incident that I had. I started, really doing some hard research into, who these companies were and who these people were. Mm-hmm. And, what I found is that a lot of times there's a real partnership between the parking lot and the booter. What they do, though, is that they make attempts to separate themselves. And if you don't know what you're looking for on the Secretary of State's website, then it looks like two completely different companies. And they'll do it so that, you go in, you complain to the business owner, and the business owner's like, I'll talk to the parking company about that, because that's not right. But at the end of the day, it's the same people that are involved in this. And it's, that's where the money is. I mean, you're talking, an event, a sporting event goes into overtime, and you've made $15,000 just
I guess
running the boot after boot after boot after boot through the parking lot.
And the point I think I was trying to make, but didn't do a very good job of doing in my last comment, was, these companies hire or contract with these booting companies, or the business owners and the property owners, and they're trying to enforce and keep their parking lots clean, which I can appreciate. Like, it's a real situation where I was describing, would the property owner really care if I left a car there so that I wasn't drinking and driving and it was there after business hours and before they opened again? Like, I'm inclined to think not, but these booting companies just sit one parking lot over and wait.
Right, absolutely. depth of this, and I want to see, where these donations are coming in from the sponsors of this bill.
I understand why people don't want our legislators getting money during session, but I would actually prefer that they do get money during session and have to report it within 48 hours, because otherwise we have to wait until after session, which in plenty of instances has happened. You see legislators get a big lump sum right after session as a thank you or whatever the case may be, and it's too late. It's already on the governor's desk, or it's already been signed into law. I would rather watch it just happen and know while it's happening so that we can call them out as it's happening.
Right. I too believe that would be greatly preferable.
I'm looking through the website of one of the companies that we talked about the other day, and it says here that they partner with police departments, municipalities, and college campuses to provide immobilization for violators. We use the latest license plate recognition software to help track and find violators. As a result, we can maximize revenue while eliminating liability and labor costs. So, I'm curious now, would that bill about the license plate that John Pezold had, would that apply to them? As far as the database, because if they're tracking and finding, they're keeping that data somehow.
So I know that when I worked with Representative Pezold when he was working on it back in 2015, and I know at the time there was a lot of concern from these companies, and at that time there was a stipulation in the bill to prevent it from applying to private companies, even if it was a contract out from, a government service, because that is a little bit intrusive. So I don't want to say for 100%, but I would imagine that he held firm on those types of things and really just tried to limit the government side.
And here's the blurb about the HOA stuff. It says, along with parking control, they can aid in collecting delinquent HOA dues by keeping homeowners immobilized until they have spoken with and settled the issue with HOA management. Proven collection technique for homeowner associations.
That's despicable.
Oh my God. On top of everything else, we're
going to hold you hostage until you...
Right, I would owe for the boot.
Right.
if you boot my truck in my driveway, I'll run to the basement and grab a Sawzall.
And see, that's kind of, that's kind of one of the things that I had thought as well is, that's, most people, unless you're in a construction trade, most people aren't going to have a Sawzall, in their vehicle at the time that they are booted. But if you're going to a man's home, then the chances are, if he's any type of does any type of handiwork, does anything himself, then even if it's not a Sawzall, you give me a full craftsman's mechanics tool set, I'll get that freaking boot off.
Right.
I don't need a Sawzall. I can do it with a socket set. Particularly,
but a Sawzall would really kind of,
it's just,
it would be fun to call them up and hand it back to them in a few pieces. Be like, here's your crap. You left it on my property.
Yeah, leave it on the curbside. But
unbelievable.
Yeah, I do love this description on this website, and we're intentionally not giving this website out, but that we partner with police departments, municipalities, and college campuses to provide immobilization for scofflaw violators. Scofflaw. Just wow. Oh, and they do now. Here's the other thing. This is one of the things that I truly do love, is that they have a dispute form on their website. So you're able to you're able to go and dispute your
That's the only thing under the contact us.
Yeah, which really,
And you.
which that's one of those things where I almost wish, as much as I am almost always for privatization of things as opposed to things being handled by the government. This is one of those things that I would greatly prefer be handled by the government. I guess it kind of falls in line, to a much lesser degree with the same thing as the private prisons, and why I don't think any of the three of us support private prisons is that, I think that a better solution, if your city truly is having parking problems, is let the city boot these vehicles, and then the city can call you, or you can call the city, and somebody from the city can come out and remove the boot and issue you a citation. And then at that point you can go to court and go, I mean, it's not a perfect system, but at that point you can go to court, go in front of a judge, and have an actual system. I mean, we'll never know, because of course there's no way to open records it, and they're not going to give it to you. They'll just lie about it. But I would love to know the percentage of people who have been booted who have actually managed to dispute that boot with the company that was booting them and get their money back. Because, I mean, that's the thing, is that the way that this is set up, the boot stays on until they have your money. And then once they have their money, then you're not going to get it back. I mean, that's ridiculous. But
right.
Yeah.
It's like when a cop says, "Hey, I'm going to put these handcuffs on you for my safety. I'll take them off here in a little bit."
Yeah.
No, he's not. You're going to jail.
It's exactly the same thing with these booting people. So that's my thoughts. So on this bill, HB 774, I'm a hard no.
I'm a hard no as well.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I don't think. I don't know that there requires a whole lot of elaboration as to why it's a crap bill.
All right, we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in this week. We appreciate you tuning in every week. And we'll be back next week on Monday with another fantastic episode of Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, right here on the All on Georgia Radio Network. And hey, remember, this show is brought to you by valued sponsors like the Curated Cup. If you head over to curatedcup.com right now, that's www.curatedcup.com, you can get yourself free shipping as well as half off your second bag using promo code ALLONGEORGIA. That's one word, All on Georgia. So to take advantage of that deal, get yourself some fantastic coffee from a Georgia company at a fantastic price. Head on over to www.curatedcup.com and at checkout use promo code ALLONGEORGIA. One word, no spaces, all caps. Hey, we appreciate y'all listening. We look forward to seeing you next week.